You know, folks, I have had political disagreements with family and friends my entire life. It's nothing new to be disagreeing about politics. We've always disagreed about politics. We've always disagreed about how we go about certain things. But I used to be under the impression that we were all in favor of democracy because elections would come and go. Things would get really heated on the campaign trail sometimes. Sometimes the arguments would get more intense. And then the campaign would come to an end, the election would be over. One side would come out and give a victory speech, the other side would come out and concede, and they would both agree to work together for the better of the country, and everybody involved would kind of dust themselves off. We still kept arguing about the same things, but we kept moving as a unified country. But that's not how it feels going into this election at all. And had you told me years ago that one day I would see a news clip like this on American TV, I would have told you were crazy, but it's happening here. Take a look.
Video discussing what would happen if he was reelected, with the newspaper headline referring to a unified Reich, which is a word, of course, associated with Hitler's Third Reich during Nazi Germany. Here's the video. The phrase unified Reich shows up very quickly as part of hypothetical news headlines that announces Trump's hypothetical 2024 win. But if you look underneath the What's Next for America headline, the smaller headline reads, industrial strength significantly increased, driven by a creation of a unified Reich. Trump's campaign spokesperson responded to the backlash, saying that the language was not used intentionally, writing in part, "This was not a campaign video. It was created by a random account online and reposted by a staffer who clearly did not see the word while the president was in court." But the Biden-Harris campaign isn't buying it and blasted that explanation, saying Donald Trump is not playing games. He is telling America exactly what he intends to do if he regains power, rule as a dictator over a unified Reich. I think
President Biden also released a video reacting to that clip. Take a look at it.
What's next for America?
Is this on his official account? Wow. A unified Reich? That's Hitler's language. That's not America's. He cares about holding on to power. I care about you.
Just so y'all know, the both sides are the same argument is dead in the water to me. I don't buy into that anymore. You can criticize the Democratic Party all day long, and I will join in with you with some of those criticisms. There's things I strongly disagree with them about. There's things I disagree with Joe Biden about. But to say that both sides are the same is ridiculous, because one side uses rhetoric right out of Nazi Germany and the other side stands against that. And that's why that I'll be voting for Joe Biden come November, because I feel like if I vote for him in November, I'll live to get a vote another day. But Donald Trump can blame this on a staffer posting the video and not noticing that rhetoric in there. But if you notice that he always hires the best and the brightest of people, they're the smartest, most creative people in the world, until he gets caught with the evidence in his hand, and then suddenly it was a mistake. Someone messed up. It wasn't his fault. It's always that way. I might buy into that for a second. I might buy into it if it wasn't for the fact that I've heard he himself pull rhetoric right straight out of the Third Reich. Take a look at this.
Pledge to you that we will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country, that lie and steal and cheat on elections. The threat from outside forces is far less sinister, dangerous, and grave than the threat from within.
All right. Root out the vermin is directly from the Fuhrer, and I don't know how that anyone who's ever read a history book in their life can't see through the rhetoric that Donald Trump is now using. And there's people out there that will allow it to become normalized. Well, we're not going to. We're never going to sit here and let this get a pass, because notice what else he says there. He says that the greatest threat comes from within. It's those on the other side. It's those with the opposing viewpoint. He's trying to paint people like us as the enemy and say that we're the ones that needs to be rooted out. He's not just simply saying that he's coming for immigrants or coming from people that are coming to this country. He's telling you the greatest threat is not those people, but it's the people who disagrees with him. How dangerous is that, to have a leader saying that the other side with the opposing views are the ones that needs to be rooted out? That's who he's referring to when he says the communists and the Marxists. It's anyone who disagrees with him. I have made some of the simplest disagreements with Trump supporters and got labeled communist, Marxist, socialist, fascist, all these words that they couldn't even define themselves. And I've asked them to, and they're deers in headlights. They can't define the words. They don't know the difference. It's just taglines that they've used that they've heard him say. But when you put his rhetoric right up against Nazi Germany, it's so spooky how similar they are. And what's even more scary is the fact that people just lets it go right over their head. Now, this here's an older clip from Jake Tapper of CNN, but I want you guys to take a look at it because he does a really good job of putting the words side by side, and you'll see that this isn't hyperbole. This is really happening.
South America, Africa, Asia. No mention of Europe in Mr. Trump's list. And he uses the term poisoning the blood of our country, poisoning the blood of our country. If you were to open up a copy of Hitler's Mein Kampf, you would find the Nazi leader describing the mixing of non-Germans with Germans as poisoning. The Jew, Hitler wrote, quote, poisons the blood of others. This, according to Hitler, posed an existential threat to Germany because, quote, all great cultures of the past perished only because the originally creative race died out from blood poisoning, unquote. There's really no other way to say it. Donald Trump's language mirrors this directly. And this wasn't a one-off. Trump then went to Nevada on Sunday and used the same scare tactic with zero evidence that migrants are largely coming to the United States from prisons and from mental institutions. He made the campaign promise to begin the largest deportation of undocumented immigrants in American history.
You know, at the end of the day, I can understand Donald Trump using that kind of rhetoric because he is a spoiled brat who just wants to hold on to power. He's a man who's not willing to accept defeat. He's a man who is never willing to admit when he's wrong. He said himself that he's never asked God for any forgiveness because he can't see why he would even have to, which goes completely against what the church teaches growing up. And I'm amazed at the ministers in my part of the world who will still stand up on their altars and praise Donald Trump. They should be paying taxes, by the way. But it's amazing to me how they will sit and praise him, a guy who said he never even had to ask for forgiveness. I can see him saying all of those things because of the spoiled, pampered brat that he is. But what I can't see is my fellow Americans sitting back and watching this rhetoric and being okay with it. Just sitting back, letting it go right over their head or acting like it's not that big of a deal. Everybody's like, there ain't nothing to that, man. Some staffer did that. He didn't mean that. That type of rhetoric appeals to a certain group of people. Donald Trump is always throwing dog whistles to those people, and it's getting them more and more empowered each and every time he does it. And when people like us tries to point it out, we get called un-American for pointing out that a guy is ripping off language from Adolf Hitler. I mean, how much more do you need? What more can I say? What more evidence can we show before you finally say, hey, you know what? Enough is enough. We can't go for this any longer. I understand that you may be caught up in the story to the point now that you want to own the libs. I understand that he hates everyone you hate, and therefore you stick to that. But what you got to understand is you're going to lose your country and you're going to lose your voice. Right now, you have it because you're walking in line with Donald Trump. Step out of line and see what happens. Look at everyone who's ever stepped out of line with Donald Trump and see how it went for him. Listen to what they have to say when they talk about how they stepped out of line with them. Go listen to what Michael Cohen has to say about once you break ties and you step away from Donald Trump and you call him out. See how it went for him. There are so many people out there, when they step out of line with him, they're no longer in the clique. So you can sit back, you can pump your fist, you can get all worked up, and you can get excited at the fact that he's pissing off liberals, and you can think that you're owning the libs, but at the end of the day, Donald Trump is going to end up owning you, lock, stock, and barrel. And you're not going to have the America that our grandfathers fought for. For the longest time, I wouldn't wave an American flag. And I feel really bad for saying that, but the reason I wouldn't do it for the longest time is because those people hijacked the flag, and it just became this right-wing thing that every time I seen it, I automatically thought, well, you know, they're just a right-wing nut job, and they're trying to shove that patriotism down our throats. And then I realized that I had let them take away the flag from me that my grandfather, my great-uncle, and family members have fought for. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to go out, I'm going to buy one, and I'm going to fly it just like anyone else to remind them that I'm an American too. You don't have to agree with everything I say. You can disagree with me all day. You're free to. I'm never going to tell you that you should be forced to live under Brando's rule. No, disagree with Brando all day long. I don't care. We're all Americans at the end of the day. But we're not going to be if we turn over the reins to that type of lunacy. And if we continue to normalize that stuff and continue to allow them to stoke the fires, that's what they're doing. They're stirring up the pot, folks. And this is not something to joke around about. This is not something to take lightly. I'm not sitting here trying to get you scared shitless. I'm just trying to be like, hey, whoa, wait, this ain't normal. This isn't normal. And I would be saying it no matter what initial was in front of the person's name. It wouldn't matter if there was a D or an R. It's not about Democrat and Republican. It's not about conservative versus liberal, progressive, whatever you want to call it. That's not what this argument is about. We have to keep the country that our founding fathers and our grandfathers fought for and put in place for us. We can disagree. We're going to disagree. It's okay to do so. But when you start wanting to root out everyone who disagrees with you and have a government that mirrors people that only thinks and looks exactly like you, that is everything that your grandfathers fought against. And people really need to just stop in their tracks for a minute and think about this. It's okay. You got worked up. You got caught up in a story. I get it. But you've lost the plot, and it's time to rein it in and really think it over.